Let's talk herd. What's your relationship now with training and working with the horses? Would you say that you're more of a shepherd with them now, in a sense? Like that's where the focus is at the moment.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And a caretaker, just overall wellness.
Yeah.
But then there are some that want to do something and, grab the halter, put their head in, and they're
Yeah.
totally happy with having a halter on, or whether we're working or stretching or just standing there. Some
Yeah.
I just need to put the halter on and they stop like bonking me in the head. They're just like, yes, this is all I wanted. I feel special, more connected. Everybody's looking at me.
Yeah. So how do you decide, how do you structure that in your mind? Like your time with the horses and because most people have got a bit of a routine, they might be stuck in that routine, where this is what I do every time with my horse, or they might not, but they have some kind of, and you have there's so many horses there's so many possibilities, there's so much potential for what you can do, and you only have so much time in the day. So what sort of drives it? What's your guidance system like? Or do you just go with the flow 100%?
Definitely going with the flow is major. I
Yeah.
try for time management, and thankfully, I have great people helping and working with me so they can be, my eyes and ears when if I can't put all my if I can't see every single animal. Um, so that's very
Right.
helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also know that if I am thinking of a specific horse over and over, or if I'm feeling that draw in my
Okay.
chest to go see them, then I always follow that.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. So it's a real inner thing,
Yes. There are
like an
times,
energy.
I could think of last summer when the horses were with the cows and they were very far away in a pasture and they were grazing back there. And I was about to go home. It was like sunset. But I got that draw. I was like, I need to go and check on them again, make sure they have water. And I was like,
Wow. Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
It's like it's going to be at least another hour, but I had
Yeah.
to honor it and respect it.
Yeah.
So I went out there,
Yeah.
and of course, there was a mild issue, but it was real. And so helped that out, and then I was good to go.
And do you think the horses are directly communicating with you? Like, what was that issue?
It it
If you
was
can
one
remember.
of the horses. One of the mares was standing next to a newborn calf, and she wasn't stealing the baby,
Oh.
but because the cow didn't want to go near
Oh
her,
my God.
the cow couldn't get to the baby, and the baby was sleeping. And the mare was doing great. She
Wow.
was literally just protecting the baby. But I had to go and reconnect mom and baby
Yeah.
together. Um, so, what was
So
it?
what do you think told you about that?
Oh,
Like
so yes,
so I was wondering what you sensed.
I do. So I do talk
Like,
with God a lot. And, sometimes I know it comes from the horses or the cows or something. But then there are other times when I'm hearing God and I'm like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. It feels different. It sounds
Mm,
different. It's not like a
yeah.
voice, but it's almost like the
Okay.
sound gets into my body differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more
versus
of a kind of like an atmosphere, maybe.
yeah. Versus like if it's a horse talking to me, and it's almost like I can feel like a pointed pressure, and I'll look up and I'll just see like somebody staring at me, and I'm like, okay.
Mm, wow. That's amazing. And do you think that's a gift that you have, or have you developed that over time?
I think it's maybe a little bit of both. Like maybe it's a gift in the sense I was a little bit more sensitive to it, but I definitely, the more that I
Mm,
honor and listen to, okay, don't go there, go here, turn right or turn left, or go check on these guys, the more I just continue, even if it
mm,
makes absolutely no sense, or if I'm going to be late, or if my phone is hidden and I'm going to be, half an hour
yeah.
late to work. Maybe there was an accident that was going to happen. I don't know, but I got there safely.
Mm,
But definitely just continuing
yeah.
to listen to it. And I have such a great support system everywhere in my life that they not just believe me,
Yeah.
but they have their own stories like that. And so it's just that continual support of, yes, isn't that so cool and so great? And, all of those conversations that are
Yeah.
that make my life really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It must be fun because it's like there's so much, just so much potential for things changing and things developing. And yeah, that's really cool. So, do you find that there are some horses that you have more of a relationship with, just closer, more intimate?
With me particular,
Yeah, like, or yeah, I mean, or anybody else. Just are there, yeah, there's some that are more human orientated.
yeah, absolutely. So definitely my personality is going to mesh with other horses' personalities more than maybe somebody else. There's also just different times of the day or different days in general where I'm like, okay, I can understand you or
Yeah.
have more empathy for what you're going through. And then there are for sure others that
Mm,
either just really get along with a man's energy rather than female, um, and or get
mm,
along with somebody and that person can really hear them so much better than I can. And so it's really it's
yeah.
fun watching that too. I really like that, and I'm happy that other people are able to experience
Yeah.
that.
So what would you say, like, if somebody said to you, what's your overall like goal but intention as well, like with the situation, like what are you doing with those horses? Like what's the ultimate, you know?
Right. It's kind of very broad as far as
Yeah.
the ultimate goal, um, which would be just that
Yeah.
cohesiveness, healthiness, and that's
Yeah.
like kind of the overall. Um, and because I leave that as the overall, that gives, especially the horses, because I have such a relationship with them, I really let them guide me to the next step, whatever that may look like. I might not have that, but like my core is I really want that
Yeah.
cohesiveness and I really want
Yeah.
everybody healthy and happy. But usually with the cohesive and healthy, then we get the
Yeah.
happiness. So that either leads to meeting new people who can help the horses that I've been maybe having trouble really
Hmm.
helping them, fully helping them. So it might be a new therapy that I'm introduced to, or a new person that the horses
Yeah.
want to bring in. That so um, there's also the journey of
Hmm.
injuries and wounds, and that we really are going down a road that is not quite
Yeah.
super modern, and it's more of supporting the
Yeah.
emotional, personal being
Yeah.
rather than just that wound
Yeah.
area.
So do you think there's an element of them like healing you, not just you, but the people involved, and that they're there for you as well as, yeah,
Oh,
it's like a
absolutely.
kind of mutual.
Absolutely. Yes. That when I'm near them, their heart energy is healing me as well, even if they're not feeling good. That's why it just feels so nice being with them. People are coming here uh, to with the thought of, okay, I'm going to work on these horses, but the
Yeah.
horses are working on them as well. And so, really, being a place of a
Yeah.
sanctuary where it's
Yeah.
reciprocated, it's a full circle. And also, like, introducing people to what
Yeah.
we're doing, and that maybe looking at horses in a different way, or how to work
Yeah.
with them in a
I
different
love
way.
that word, sanctuary. Yeah. And it's like a sort of sanctuary for choice and for emotions and for just being like who you are, really.
Yeah, that it's okay to be who you are.
Yeah. And I was thinking that today, because all horses are different, aren't they? I mean, obviously, I know that's kind of simple, but I was thinking today that with my herd, small herd, if I only had the 6 of them, like not including Karamba, then it would be a different experience because she is somehow a much more complex relationship, like more complex to understand what she needs, and she's much more she's not so sort of, oh, how do I describe it? She's got less of a sort of barrier about her, or she's not so sort of conditioned in her behavior, I suppose. And I don't know if it's that, or it could be just that she has just a more, she's almost like, she's almost more of a predator in a horse body. So I don't know if that kind of
Mm-hmm.
puts it across, but
Yeah.
she's like that. And so if I didn't have her, or even Cheyenne, who before that I had, Cheyenne was also a similar kind of personality, then you would just think, oh, well, horses are so like, they're just so docile and sweet and, and easy. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is the more you have, like the more you experience different horse personalities, the more you realize how diverse they are and how different, like they've all got something different to offer you and to bring to you. And yeah, so you're always learning, really. Would you say that some of your horses come to mind as being like that and having like things about them that you are really learning still to kind of accommodate and understand?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, even when you're talking about Karamba and being more of a predator personality, I was immediately thinking about Dolly. And when she was 2 years old, and she felt like she needed to be a part of not just everything, but every experience. So, like,
Wow.
if a horse was colicking and I was working on them, she would come up and be there and support that.
Mm,
And then there was a snapping turtle that snapped at one of the horse's legs,
wow.
and the horse, she, made a noise and a little kick and trotted off. Well, Dolly, this little 2-year-old, just like was marching over with purpose and sniffs the snapping turtle and stomps
Oh
her
my
foot.
God.
I don't think she got it because I didn't see it, but I mean, she was very,
Yeah.
very intently stomping that foot,
Wow.
and then looked at it again and walked away. So yeah, that much more of that protective nature.
Yeah.
And she's always been a big part of my teaching and learning and education. And she's one of the ones where we're trying to figure out what may be going on with her body, because she's always been very sensitive to touch.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that she's about 5 or 6 now, that there's one day during her heat cycle when she feels really comfortable. Like that prickly energy feeling is gone, no longer there.
Yeah.
And so I'm, immediately thinking of estrogen and ovaries. Okay, but how can we do that with her still feeling comfortable and wanting to be a part of every process of healing that, or figuring out how to heal it? And which, more than likely, knowing her, is not going to be, getting her ovaries ultrasounded. So, okay, how can we go down a different route?
Yeah, I love that way of looking at these sort of issues, for want of a better word, as like signals or like opportunities to grow in a way. Yeah, I just did a podcast with someone who, her young horse had he just developed uveitis almost out of nothing for no real reason, and he had this film over his eye. I think it was just one of his eyes, but she, through a process of like inner listening and understanding herself, she was able to understand that it was because he wanted adventure and he wanted to do things and like be, go and explore the world, really. And that was what she wanted to do too, but she'd just been putting it off because she felt, a bit challenged. But you know how you do sort of put things off if they're challenging. And so, yeah, that was, and when they started doing that together, it just healed. It was just gone. So it's almost like those things are just, they're just signposts, really, aren't they, for where you're going next and how you can evolve, really, yourself and them. I think it's really important because in your situation, it's probably easier for you to stay really in that beginner's mind where everything is possible, and you don't like know it all as such. And because I think when people have got maybe just one or two horses in their lives and they tend to have a routine, you tend to sort of lose that ability to just see everything as possible, like anything's possible. And yeah, and it can be a completely different tomorrow to what you do today. And yeah, and I think we want to make rules about things to make it, to sort of keep that potential in check, because the potential is scary. I feel with the horses that there's, and I think that this can be for everyone really in time. I feel like there's a whole different dimension for us to discover in terms of our relationship. Like, it's not necessarily about sitting on them, but it might be. But we can do things outside of the paradigm of control, and also outside of training. So it's almost like the horse can become truly an equal, like in a way that they can offer in ways that we just don't. I mean, it's hard to describe it because we don't really, because it doesn't really exist that yet in that many situations. I mean, I think it does for some people. They are doing it already, but it's just not really in the culture. But would you say that you see signs of that happening and you're feeling that with the horses? Because your particular situation, you've got like young horses that have been born with you that trust you 100. They're not all like rescues, for example. So you're in that situation where you're really like, there's so much potential for that.
Yeah. It's right to become like a true equal. And yeah, absolutely. Because they, it,
Yeah.
you definitely want to find a horse where the personalities mesh and match. And then it's, just super easy. But sometimes it's the more challenging ones that you have that connection with that you really learn and you both get an education. Especially with the compromise and the give and the take and okay, it's not always 50-50. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Dolly with the, very sensitive skin and you really couldn't touch her. I could still take her everywhere. I could take her to the arena. I could move her into a new pen. And it wasn't me pushing her somewhere. It was that invitation. And she knew I was respecting her space by not getting too close because it made her feel uncomfortable. And I was just picturing what I was looking for and then sending her that picture or that video. And she was just so receptive to it, naturally or gifted. And so she would just be like, oh, yeah, I'm okay with that. We can go into this pen. But it was always that invitation. And that, so yeah, I think that there's, I don't know if we always give horses like enough credit as far as giving them a chance to want to work or have that choice or, want to do the show. 'Cause some are like just so talented in the show ring and you just know that there's such a deep connection that they know exactly what the rider is looking for. And they're like, yeah, I want to do this too.
Yeah. Yeah, because what I'm sort of thinking about is a situation more where a little bit like what you were talking about with your communication, but that it would be on that level. So it's not so much you offering or us offering them, like to say, do you want to come and do this with me? And like, it's more that they would say, right, I want to do this today. Or this would feel really good to me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, like a kind of, and like showing us that they can show us. Like what I feel with my herd is that they're like teaching me in some way that, and we're doing it by getting past or like dissolving the old kind of patterns that are there that are kind of entrenched in the relationship. But it's like they can show us ways to, like, for example, what comes into my mind is like a way to be able to stay on them if they were, say they were galloping and they'd, asked us to be on them. And just how would you stay on without anything to hold you on, kind of thing. And there are ways with gravity and with their energy and with their physical body. And I think there's like a whole world that we don't really realize yet that exists. And yeah. So have you seen any like signs of that? Is that kind of happening for you?
Yeah, not so much with the writing, but definitely with their intent of what they need and what they know what's going on with their body and how it feels. And then me listening to their no. And then then through like scenarios, it turns into, okay, this is happening with the horse is telling me no. And then, I'll be talking with somebody and they're like, oh, well, what about this? And I know that it's all connected. And so then that brings it to either bringing that person down and that opens the door to something else. But it started with the horse and listening to that no, and them, whether it's like the God and horse, and where does everything start and end, but it's,
Yeah.
if I follow my intent and my core, I know it's going to keep doing that, and I know the horses are going to keep opening doors, and they're going to. One of the horses was colicking this morning, and I know what to do with that at that stage, and so I'm going in there. But it's also a horse that doesn't like to be touched. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to follow you, and you're going to tell me where to start. And they're like, okay, start right here with the tail pull, but go straight behind me. I'm like, okay, I've seen you double barrel kick before. That's fine. But because the feel is so comforting and so intent, and there's no anxiety or anger with it, that I know this is what they need and this is what they're asking for. So I'm following them because they know what they're feeling better than I do.
Yeah. And I can really feel what you mean, like how you know that. But can you describe, how would you tell someone who didn't really get a sense of that, how you know?
So, yes. So it's great. So like when I first am training people to work with the horses, we go and experience the emotions and what those feel like. So we go and go to a horse that has anxiety, with people being close by. We go to a horse that is totally calm and relaxed with people close by. Or we go and feel, their energies as they're being fed or when they're moving or walking. So it's first having the anxiety and the calmness and the happy and the anger and the pain. So first experiencing those. And once you've experienced those, then you can feel when the intent is, this really hurts right here. And I know that if you do this, because I get that picture of a tail pull, then, it'll feel better.
Yeah.
So, and the emotions definitely feel different for everybody. Like, anxiety tends to feel like sometimes a prickle in my fingers or heaviness in my chest. And then anger is just a big old wall. But for somebody else, it might feel a little different.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. I love that. That whole space that you open of listening, because in a way, it's so fluid, but it's so real as well, because people really, once they can believe that they can feel, and that whatever they're feeling means something. Because I think often when people are feeling what they think is nothing, they're just feeling that space, like that. Maybe it's like a kind of not listening space. And then if they just, are able to kind of feel it as a thing, as a non-listening, or as a not listening, or whatever space, then they start to, it's almost like it's a thread that you can kind of catch the end of, and then you're just taken through this whole series of things. So have you ever worked with someone who just didn't feel anything and wasn't able to get through?
Yeah. Yes.
And what happened with that?
And they were still able to work with the horses, but I did limit which horses. And that way there weren't any accidents. And then I would, we would periodically get together and try and feel things. And sometimes, over time, they felt it. Other times they didn't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little bit more difficult if they don't feel things. But usually that's because they don't want to be in their body. So
Yes. So it's like personal
because you have to be in
trauma,
your
though,
body.
because that was what I was going to ask you. What did you? Yes. Yeah, that's really. I like that way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same with horses, isn't it? If they're not in their body, then it's difficult to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can you think of any like really interesting scenarios that have happened in terms of you learning new things? And sorry, kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but does anything come to mind, like in terms of that healing, holistic healing kind of journey where you're changing like your approach? And
If it changed, what was that?
your approach, the way that you would do things has kind of shifted or changed or
I mean, definitely the first thing was I had to get out of my head fixing anything. Like now, it's not my job to fix anybody.
yeah,
And to
that's
really
huge, isn't it?
put, yeah, and to really think of it as offering support and a presence,
Yeah.
and a listening ear. Yeah, so definitely starting there and then being okay with however things progressed. Also, not labeling things as good or bad, especially when it came to wounds or injuries, and just looking for changes.
Yeah, I love that.
That
Yeah, I
was
love
major.
that.
Because, journeys tend to have a very roller coaster process. And sometimes it has to become interesting looking before we finish the healing of this one thing. But we're always on a healing journey. We're always changing and trying. And, it kind of feels like when horses or people don't, or when they stop, either it's, I'll just stick with the horses. When they have kind of stopped trying, then there's usually an aspect of maybe they're done. Or maybe they're hurting internally, or maybe there's an emotional part that we haven't addressed, like a level of depression, kind of thing, but in a horse sense.
Yes.
Or maybe I need to look at putting them with somebody else. Or maybe they just want to be free for a couple days. Just break it up.
Yeah.